On this episode of Locked On Angels, Rengifo has season-ending surgery. The Halos really need to figure out who they have in their young core, and they have prospects, Halo fans, lots of prospects, despite what the rankings say. They have some good minor leaguers. We're going to talk all about it. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is, and yes, we are. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to give back to the Super Halo Bros for all this Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use our promo code LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Fresh Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
It's our third season here at Locked On Angels, talking Angels baseball with you every Monday through Friday. You can always count on us to talk Halos when everybody else is talking nonsense, Michael. On today's show, we're going to talk about the Halos young core. We're going to give you some prospect updates, but first, we've got some injury news that broke yesterday while the Angels didn't end up playing the Yankees yesterday, so they're going to do a doubleheader later today, but let's get into that news.
Yeah, wrist irritation turns into right wrist surgery for Luis Rengifo.
And not just any kind of surgery, season-ending surgery, right. Michael.
Isn't that just classic Angels, by the way, John? It just seems like,
well, you got to start somewhere. I mean, look, his wrist is irritating him, and of course it's going to progress to something much worse than that, which it always seems to do with the Angels, right? Like, right, wrist irritation, maybe he'll be out for a few days. No, it's turns out he needs surgery.
Right.
Good grief.
I wonder if the Angels were in this thing, if he would play through that. I wonder if they would go and opt for surgery. I wonder if it was that bad, or if they know that they're out, and so that's why they're having him get surgery, right?
Well, yeah, that might be it. And honestly, that's the better decision here. So credit to them for making a good decision, I suppose.
There's a good decision for the Angels. Okay, so he got hurt on July 3rd. He came out of the game, went on the IL. He did return, but then he hurt the wrist over the weekend. And all indications are he's going to be ready for spring training in 2025. Johnny, he finishes with a really great slash line of 300 batting average, 347 on base. That's a great on base. 417 slugging and a 763 OPS with a 115 weighted runs created plus, 6 home runs, 30 RBIs, 24 stolen bases. This is a Luis Rengifo season that you would expect from this guy. And I think that we perhaps will see this when he's healthy. We'll see this if the Angels keep him over the next couple of years. And if he puts these numbers up, I'm excited about that. Are you?
Yeah, I'm excited about this too. And it seems like he was more true to himself this season. And by that, I mean, look, he didn't have as many home runs this season as last year. Most of his power comes from the right side anyway when he's facing lefties, but he was in there every day and just trying to do everything he could to create some havoc. Now, 30 RBIs, he's playing towards the top of the lineup, so that's kind of expected. 24 stolen bases, Mike, that's a new thing for him as well. And also, if I'm correct, I was looking at his stats today, and I believe that it was the lowest K rate that he's had in his career. I could be wrong about that, but I felt like it wasn't that much lower than last year, but it was lower, and I think it might have been the lowest of his career. And the numbers show it. He's emphasized contact. So, question for you though: it's another season-ending injury for Rengifo. Remember, he had the biceps tear to end his season last year. Does that make you hesitant about any kind of extension? You know, we've been talking about they should extend him to get his prime years, but does that add any hesitation at all?
I think it's going to cause them to pause because they still have him under arbitration for next season. I can't see the Angels giving him any more resource until they're pretty confident that they can get a lot of playing time out of him. Quite honestly, if I'm the Angels, I really like Rengifo. I think him playing third base is a wise decision for the future. But if I'm the Angels, I'm looking for young, and young some more. That's what I'm looking for, because anytime that they have any players that they've considered extending or have extended, it just hasn't worked out for them. And so I can see why they would be a bit gun shy, a bit hesitant. If I'm Perry Manassian, I'm a bit gun shy and I'm a bit hesitant. I'd like to see what Rengifo looks like at the beginning of spring training, and then maybe have that discussion about an extension the beginning of next season. And maybe this season is a fluke. I think I need one more consistent season from Rengifo to see what we've got in this player before I offer him a couple of years past his arbitration years.
Yeah, it seems to be he adapts to whoever's coaching him. And if they're emphasizing contact and hitting the ball to all fields like they did this season, then he does that. Last year, a lot of power up and down the lineup, and everybody was swinging for the fences, and he did that. So it'll be interesting to see what he does next season. And
that's a really good point, because it shows that he's coachable. But you said it earlier. I think this is more of who he is versus what he's been in seasons past. And Johnny, I'll take this Rengifo. And I've said it multiple times, but a 3-run home run is great, but it can also be a rally killer. But a 2-run double, and then you're at second base for the next batter, that actually can turn the lineup over and keep things going. And that's why I think Rengifo was successful and a great piece for this lineup, because he was slapping the ball to left field a whole lot more this season, which is why he's batting .300. But he was also a key piece in getting on base and being a stolen base threat. And he's going to come around and score on a single if he's at second base because of his speed. And so I really like this kid. I just think that what we saw this year is what we were hoping for and what you and I have been pushing for. Give him consistent playing time. I think this is who he is. But if I'm Angels management, give me a bit more. I want a bigger bite. That's what I'm looking for.
I like that terminology. That's great. Mike, Chase Silseth underwent season-ending elbow surgery, but he's also expected to be ready for spring training, which rules out that it was not Tommy John surgery. Thank goodness. He did start 2 games with the Angels. He left the second game with an elbow injury. He came back in late May to AAA to do some rehab assignments, through 28 1/3 innings pitched with a 6.35 ERA. He left to start on July 28th, and you could see from the video when he left that start that his elbow was bothering him again. He never came back to the majors. He did rehab, then he ended up staying in AAA. Mike, was he ever healthy? What do you think?
It didn't seem like it, right? It didn't seem like he was ever healthy. It didn't ever seem like he was comfortable on the mound, and he didn't look like the pitcher that we had come to know. Now, I know he wasn't putting up phenomenal numbers, but he didn't look like the bulldog that he was at the major league level. And so something was uncomfortable with him. And so I'm glad that at least whatever it is, and they haven't given many details, but whatever it is, they're going to get it worked out, and then he'll be back at the beginning of spring training. I just don't know what his role will be, honestly, John. And if the Angels don't do anything in the pitchers department, then I can see them going, oh, he's going to start, and he's going to be in the starting rotation for us. But I do think that is a pretty huge leap for somebody who was really struggling in the majors, had some issues, went down to the minors, had some issues, had some elbow issues. It probably was the injury, but I do think that you want to get some confidence under his belt. And I don't know if you just want that at spring training. So I could see that maybe perhaps Chase Silseth is a part of this rotation in June of next year and not April of next year.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question for you. Does he come back to the rotation? But if I look at his numbers in AAA, the way he started when he came back initially for the rehab assignment, tons of walks in not that many innings pitched. Like, he was having very short starts and walking a ton of guys, and elbow issues and control issues go hand in hand. And so to me, I think that's what's been plaguing him. I just don't think he was ever healthy. And I kind of wonder if he was even healthy to start the season. I mean, 2 starts in and you have an elbow issue. I don't know. He just didn't look like the guy he was in the second half of last season. Mike, not injury related news, but Taylor Ward went on the paternity list. So congratulations to the Wards, Taylor and Taylor, which is kind of funny. It's husband and wife, Taylor and Taylor. Did we know that they were pregnant? And maybe this is what's been on his mind and why he's been a little distracted, because I don't think I knew that they were pregnant, so congratulations to them. And then my final question for you, besides the distraction part, will he come back with that dad strength? What do you say?
Well, he should come back with at least Biggie Smalls as his theme song and steal it from Zach Neto. He should be Big Papa because he's actually a Big Papa. So congratulations to him. And it might be something that was a bit distracting for him. I think he's got a lot on his mind after getting hit. And then also with his wife being pregnant and his child coming, I would love to see Taylor Ward come back and be Taylor Ward. And if he needed to become a dad and that kind of eased his anxiety and eased his worry, man, it would be great to see him come back. Obviously, the Angels felt like keeping him was a wise decision. They didn't trade him away because they didn't think that they were going to get much value for him. And so, gosh, he's still here. So why not? Let's see what he can do. And maybe he can have a great remaining season, like in August and September, where he hits a bunch of home runs and really builds up the momentum for next season.
Speaking of great dads, our thoughts, our best wishes, and of course our prayers to Freddie Freeman and his wife and his son. Man, I watched the press conference from 2 days ago and my heart just broke for the guy. I mean, I know that sounds like Max is getting better. Just a 3-year-old, man.
Right.
It's just, it just destroys me. And so, and to see the emotion with Freddie coming back, all of our best to him, of course. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen today. The Angels are expected to play that doubleheader today. It starts with the first game at 1:05 Pacific time. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. All you got to do is search Angels. I'll be interested to see who they bring up for the 27th man. You know, they're allowed to bring somebody up to play that role during a doubleheader. It doesn't count against the roster. Hey, coming up on Locked On Angels, have the Halos figured out what they have in their young core of players? We're going to talk about all of that coming right up.
Everydayers, it's time to download Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. It's the most fun and exciting way to get in on all of the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. And you can get in on the excitement and win up to 100 times your cash this summer with Prize Picks while watching the summer games. You could turn $10 into $1,000 while watching Team USA literally rack up the gold. They're doing it right now. And you can put a Prize Pick lineup together in 60 seconds, and it can be basketball, soccer, tennis, golf, and so much more. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're locked in. Download the app right now. Enter our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. Join Prize Picks today. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And everydayers, when you're done here, make your second listen Locked On MLB. Our pal Sully, he's your pal too. He's going to take you all around the league, get you ready for what the playoffs are going to look like, and he's got you covered from base to base, foul pole to foul pole every single day. Locked On MLB is on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And again, the Angels are playing the Yankees, a doubleheader today. First game starts at 1:05 Pacific time. Catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Angels.
John, all offseason, you and I kept saying, no expectations. This is the year for the Angels to figure out what they have, even though the Angels were saying, oh, we're going to be competitive and we're going to try to get the playoffs and all of those things. A lot of fans, including you and I, were like, no. This is going to be a season to figure some things out, see what they have with Zach Neto, Logan O'Hoppe, what they can do in a full, healthy season, which, by the way, they're doing great. Also, Nolan Shonowell, what he can do, and if he can continue to be the guy that he was when he came up last season. And you and I have been an advocate, you more than me, to give Joe Adell a full season in the majors, and he couldn't be sent down. So let's give him a full-time shot and see what he's got, see what the guy's got. So, Johnny, have the Angels figured out what they have in 2024?
Yeah, let's take a look.
Let's take a look.
We've got Logan O'Hoppe. Let's talk about his offense, Mike. When he came back from shoulder surgery last August, remember he crushed 10 home runs in 35 games. He went on a tear. This year, he's on his way to passing Mike Napoli. You mentioned it, for the most home runs from a catcher since 2009. He's got 16. Napoli had 17. My question is, Mike, does he pass Lance Parrish's franchise record of 22 for a catcher this year? What do you think?
I think he's got a shot. I think he's got a legitimate shot. And he's the type of guy that isn't necessarily a home run hitter. If he continues to use the entire field, then yes, absolutely. Because I think he's going to have, this is going to sound terrible, but he's going to have accidental home runs, which means that he's using the whole field, but he's going to smash a couple that are going to go to right center, which he's been doing lately. And so I could see him certainly getting to 22 home runs. I could see him getting to like 25 at the end of the year. And wouldn't that be fantastic?
Absolutely. Now, among all the qualified catchers who are everyday catchers, they're not splitting time between other positions, O'Hoppe is first in weighted runs created plus with 122. He's fourth in average with a 277 average, and he's second in slugging behind Salvi Perez with a 463 slugging. And then I wanted to get into his defense and his catching, because that was a big thing that we came into this season with, of, is he going to improve in that this season? So let's talk about blocks above average. In 2023, he was a +1. In 2024, he's a -1. However, you have to take into consideration the number of block opportunities that he's had among all the qualified catchers. Mike, he's got the most in baseball with 3,458 block opportunities, which is kind of funny that he's far and away above the next person, because he's got to get all of those pitches that go in the dirt and spike and things like that. So a lot of pitches thrown to Logan O'Hoppe.
Yeah. And then caught stealing above average. Last year, Logan was -3. This year, -3. He's consistent, John. He's 48 out of 60 qualified catchers. Now, it's important to note that O'Hoppe had more chances this year for catching runners than he did last season. So that's really important. And for his defense and for the awareness of where those numbers are what those numbers are saying and how they're qualifying things.
Right. Because if he was going to be worse over a longer period of more guys to throw out, the fact that he's right in line with where he was last year with less chances, I think is a good thing. But he also did make a change to his crouch position just recently, Mike. He's not on the knee. They mentioned it on the broadcast, he's kind of using his knees as his feet in order to throw the ball and improve there as well. Why don't you talk about framing runs above average, his ability to steal strikes this season?
Yeah, so in 2023, he was a -5. This season, -2. Again, more chances this season, so he has improved. He's 43 out of 60 qualified catchers. In fact, the best framer is Patrick Bailey of the Giants with 11. Johnny, if they go to robo-umps, or if they go to an automatic strike zone, then this framing conversation completely goes away. And I wonder if that's one of the reasons why they wouldn't, because they like this framing. They like stealing strikes. They like having that flex on their resume, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. Now it's pop time. Remember, I heard somebody describe it. I think it was Bobby V on the broadcast. The pop of the glove from the catcher to the pop of the glove to the second baseman or the shortstop. 2023, 2.09 seconds. This year, 2.02 seconds. Ideally, you want to be sub 2. You want to be under 2. Now, he's 65th out of 73 qualified catchers. Mike, as we continue with Logan O'Hoppe into next season and the year after that, obviously we want him to be a franchise player for a lot of his career. Do you think the catching stats improve, or is this about where he's at?
I think he'll improve a little bit because his baseball IQ will grow. His body's going to continue to grow. But quite honestly, John, he is somebody that you're not looking for great defensive skills. You're looking for somebody that can be neutral back there, right? And so anything that he can do that is 0 and above is fantastic. I think some of the negative numbers, it'd be great if they got to at least 0 or +1. But I think what Logan O'Hoppe is going to bring are the intangibles. He's going to bring the leadership qualities, the passion, the excitement, and he's got a great bat. And I think that that's where they're going to really rely on Logan more than the defensive side of things. And so I can see Logan really starting to flourish as an offensive player. And I would be okay with him being a neutral, I don't want to say mediocre, a neutral defensive catcher back there.
Yeah, he's close to 0 in a lot of those categories.
Yeah.
Zach Neto, let's talk about his defense real quick. His ultimate zone rating last year was a negative 1.8 UZR. That kind of encompasses everything they do well, from fielding to arm to range and all of that stuff. And over the course of 150 games, based on that negative 1.8, he would have had a negative 3.4 ultimate zone rating. This year, he's got a positive 0.7 UZR. And if he were to project that over 150 games, it'd be 1.1. It would be a positive ultimate zone rating. Defensive run saved last year, 3 in 2023. This year, it's been 10.
Wow.
Right? And again, that goes back to opportunity and whatnot, but
yeah,
he's preventing runs from being scored based on his defense. Outs above average. Last year, it was a positive 1. This year, it's a negative 3. So I thought that was interesting. Defensive run saves and outs above average are, it really is like, take your preference, right?
Yeah.
And in this situation, I'm going to take DRS because that's the good numbers for Neto. But at the same time, outs above average kind of show that he's lacking in the sense that he's not making any extra outs out there in terms of the more than the ones he should be making at the end of the day. So that's kind of what you can imagine that number to be. Why don't you talk about his offense? Actually, this is impressive.
That's where he's really improved. So among qualified shortstops whose primary position is shortstop, he's got a 2.2 Fangraphs WAR, 12th out of 18 in the league, 8th in weighted runs created plus with 112. That's above Anthony Volpe, Jeremy Pena, Dansby Swanson, O'Neill Cruz. I love that Volpe is in that because he gets so much publicity for being the Yankee shortstop.
Yeah.
And Zach Neto is just spectacular. So the question, Johnny, is Neto's hitting 256 with a 320 on base and a 439 slugging. Is this just the start of the Zach Neto rise, or do you think that these numbers will be his career averages with the Halos?
Yeah, to me, I feel like a 265 Zach Neto is a good Zach Neto. I think that that's where his ceiling might be if he's gonna hit for average. It's gonna be that 265 mark, because you go back to last year. Look, he's still figuring things out in terms of what he's doing at the plate, his leg kick, and all of that stuff. When to use it, when not to use it. Obviously, he's made some changes in his hands, even from earlier this season. So I think that he can improve and be above those numbers. The on base 320. I'd like to see that get better, but he just doesn't walk very often. He's somebody who likes to swing, and I think that that's reflected in hitting the home runs and hitting the average. So 256, 320, 439, that seems right in line with where he could be in the future. Mike, why don't you talk about, this is a guy you like a lot, Nolan Shonowell. Let's talk about
swinging the bat. His OPS each month has really grown. So in March and April, 588, and everybody said, oh, he can't hit, he needs to be sent down. And then in May, 651, they're like, no, he still needs to be sent down. Then June, 733, and then we started clapping back. And then in July, 949, and has been crushing the ball. So Johnny,
he did it for us.
He did it for us, right? So Nolan is, I think, finding his rhythm and finding his abilities, right? And actually the type of player he'll be in the major league. So is he settling in after a rough start?
Yeah, I think so. I think he kind of came in wanting to do one thing, but then getting away from that and trying to hit for power a certain way. I think he was trying to answer those criticisms that a lot of people had watching him at the end of last season. I like the fact that his OPS has grown each month. He's taking more walks, striking out less, things like that, hitting a home run every now and then. He's up to 12 at this point. And so to get that kind of production from him so far this season is unexpected, but also really great. I think that I need to evaluate him at the end of the season to get a real good picture. Mike, let me talk about Joe Adell. I want to also talk about his OPS. 979 in March and April, 601 in May, 460 in June, 700 in July. So he had this huge dip in production over May and June. He did hit a lot of home runs in May, but in July, he took more walks, struck out less, And this month, in 14 plate appearances, he's at a 268 average. Do you think he's going to turn it around the rest of the way? What do you think?
Yeah, I think he will. I think that what we'll find is he'll be floating around 200 probably by the end of the year, but I don't think that that's going to be a reflection of who he is. I think, again, this is a figure it out year for the Halos, and it's a figure it out year for Joe Adell. And so I think that they're going to give him more at bats. Plus, he's moving to center field. I think that you're going to find a more comfortable Joe Adell. And truthfully, these games are not pressure-filled games. And so I think you're going to find somebody who is going to be able to kind of get into his groove and get comfortable. I think that you keep this guy around. He's young, he's athletic, and I think that it's going to take him some time to develop into the player that he is. He's shown that, but I think he's moving in that direction, and he's willing to learn and he's willing to listen.
I still love that Adolis Garcia comp that we've discussed here and our everydayers have brought up too. I think that that's a really good comparison.
Today's episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by Liquid IV. You can get hydrated and stay hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powder hydration brand in America, because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and hydration. Plus, Liquid IV is perfect during a workout, hot days. Right now in SoCal, it's hot, and long work hours. Get hydrated and stay hydrated. 1 stick of Liquid IV in 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. Plus, it's got 8 vitamins and nutrients all in a single stick, and it tastes great as well. And you can check out all of the flavors on their website. No more dehydration for our everydayers with Liquid IV. And you can get 20% off your first order when you go to liquidiv.com and use our promo code MLB at checkout. Tear, pour, and live more. Liquid IV.
Mike, we're going around the minor leagues to look at a couple of prospects and get some updates on them. First, real quick, Christian Moore didn't have a great night last night for the Trash Pandas. Kind of his first bad game, 0-for-4, 3 strikeouts. So we'll see how he recovers from that adversity. But why don't you take us around some of the minor league systems for the Angels and tell us about what's going on with some of these prospects.
Yeah, let's talk about George Clausen, who they got in the trade for Carlos Estevez. He debuted with the 66ers in the IE, went 5 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 3 walks, and 10 Ks. Johnny, he struck out 10 of the first 21 batters he faced over 5 innings. Woo. I love what we got to see from him. He was in the upper 90s with his fastball and was just crushing the numbers. Johnny, Clausen needs how many starts before they move him up to Double-A?
Yeah, you know what's funny is it always seems like High A gets skipped over.
Yeah.
So I feel bad. I feel bad for the Dust Devils, but yeah, I would say give him this month. I mean, what can he get in the next month or so? I'm looking at the dates, 7th, so maybe 3 more starts.
Yeah.
And I don't know when their season ends, so that's the question here. I think the Trash Pandas are done pretty soon, actually, Mike. So early September. So it might be worth just having him stay in Single A for now and just build that confidence and then kind of reevaluate where you want these guys to land at the beginning of next season. So maybe he does get to Double-A, but yeah, Clausen would be fun to watch. Man, 10 straight outs on strikeouts to start. That's incredible. I love that. Let me talk about Jordan Adams over his last 26 games for AAA Salt Lake. Mike, he's hitting .351, has a .442 on base, a .577 slugging. That's good for a 155 weighted runs created plus. He's got 14 extra base hits. Is he finally turning into somebody we thought that he would be? What do you say?
I think 26 games is great. I'd love to see that over 52 games, right?
Yeah.
I'd love to see that over 67 games. You know what I mean? I want to see some longevity from him. And so if he continues to put up those numbers, then the answer would be yes. But at this point, I'd like to see a bit more longevity and consistency from him. And speaking of consistency, somebody that has really struggled with that because he's been battling injuries is Sam Bachman. Right now, he's 0-4 with a .470 ERA and 13 starts, 46 innings pitched, 43 Ks and a 1.3 whip. His last start wasn't great, just 2/3 of an inning and 5 earned runs, 8 runs total. The previous 4 starts, though, Johnny, 3 of those 4 starts, he went at least 6 innings and he gave up a total of 3 earned runs. There was one start where he went 2 2/3 and gave up 5 earned runs. Do you think that Bachman is going to be the starter that everybody expected him to be? Or do you think it would be wise to shift him back to reliever mode again?
Man, I just want to see him get healthy. I just want to see him iron out the bugs and the wrinkles and figure out what he looks like over a long span. Kind of like what you were saying with Jordan Adams. I want to see what Bachman looks like over the course of a season. So in that sense, I don't think that he's ready to be called up right away, especially for next season. And if he wants to be a starter, I think he's going to have to show that he can be one over a long stretch of games, because suddenly the need for starters, well, the need is still there. But I will say this, there are more guys who can be starters now than there were when Bachman first got here.
Yeah.
And if he wants to remain a starter, I think he's got to demonstrate that he can do that over a stretch of time. Mike, let me talk about Trash Panda's closer, Eric Torres, somebody that we've been chomping at the bit to see in the majors.
Yeah.
Last 13 games for Rocket City, 16 and 2/3 innings pitched, a 1.08 ERA, 27 Ks, 7 walks. Is he going to be in the bullpen soon? Do you think they'll give him a look?
I think it'd be smart. I'd love to see him up there. I'd love to see what he can do, and to pair him with Ben Joyce and some of the other guys that they have in the bullpen. I think that they can start shaping up what their next year bullpen might look like. But been a big fan of Eric Torres for a long time, and I'd love to see him in the majors. I just don't want them to rush him up there. And so I've not seen him live or seen his pitch live or on video. And so they're going to have a better perspective there. But we talked about this on yesterday's show, that there are some guys that just have it, and then there are some guys that need to work for it. And Christian Moore, I think, has it. Reed Detmers needs to work for it. I think in the same context, they need to figure out if Eric Torres is that bulldog that can come up and pitch, or if he still needs some time to really develop in the minor league. Speaking of development, Johnny Caden Dana has been the guy that everybody's talking about. He's got a 2.91 ERA in 111 innings this season. He's allowed 3 runs or less in all but 3 of his 18 starts.
Like
and he
that.
leads the minor leagues in quality starts with 11. Here's his last 4 starts. 27 innings pitched, 16 hits, 7 earned, 3 walks, 34 Ks, and a 2.33 ERA. John, when does he get his next challenge? When does he move from AA to AAA?
I would like to see him have a quick stint in AA, just because I know that it's not the best place to assess pitching because of the high elevation, but that's the step right below major league quality bats, right? You've got, I was just saying this in our comment section the other day, you've got guys like Jake Marisnick and, Willie Calhoun was down there at one point, guys who are fringe major leaguers. Maybe they've done it before. Maybe they're just on the outside looking in a little bit, but that's like the last test for a guy. And I know we often go from AA to the majors, and I would like to see him have a stop there in Salt Lake, just to see how he handles guys with a bit more experience with the bat, guys who have seen major league pitching, and see how he stands up against those guys who have seen major league pitching, because you'll find out if he can be figured out, right? And I wouldn't look at the results. I wouldn't look at, oh boy, he surrendered, 4 home runs or what have you. Yeah. Like, oh, that might be a bad thing, but you just got to consider the elevation. You've got to consider the inflated numbers, but I would really love to see how these fringe major league guys who have been there before, seen it all, handle a guy like Caden Dana in AAA.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out the Locked On MLB podcast with Paul Francis Sullivan. Our buddy Sully's going to make you laugh, make you cry, make you smarter. And you can check out his show, Locked On MLB, on YouTube and also wherever you get your podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.
Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels, and that's Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to get in a comment section and be part of the conversation, come on over to YouTube, find today's episode, whether you're watching or listening, get in the comments. We love hearing from you there. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It helps out Mike and I more than you know. You can personally help us out just by clicking a button. We love it. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
Well, hopefully they're going to play today, and then we can talk about that doubleheader tomorrow. We got all the details for you. We'll recap everything for you tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right. Looking forward to the doubleheader today. We hope that you enjoy yourself. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Thursday.
I would love some rain here so they can
No
send the
kidding.
rain
Oh
to
my
SoCal.
gosh. So hot.